Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Inside Marketing. We have a really exciting episode here today. We are gathered on a Monday. I'm really excited again to get into the mind of another head of marketing who's very kindly joined us on the series today. So today I'm joined by Dan Clark, who is the head of marketing at Stonegate Tooling. Really, really delighted to have you, Dan. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Sophie. It's great to be here.
No problem, no problem. I think I said on the last podcast, it's I understand marketers are very often time poor, so it's even more of a privilege to be able to sort of nab you for an hour and pick your brains and hear about the work you're doing. So yeah, really, really appreciate that. Yeah, and obviously, Dan, I think you've had a really interesting kind of marketing career, and everybody's marketing career is different. Obviously, you now sit at head of marketing and in that role, but everyone kind of has a different journey towards getting there, which then kind of impacts the approach that you have. So it'd be really, really interesting to hear all about inside marketing for you. So hear about your journey and kind of how you got to where you are now, what sparked your love of marketing, and whether that was kind of always what you were going to go into. Maybe if you can kind of just take us back to the beginning and how you got to where you are today. Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure. So slightly different route into marketing. It's kind of my third career
Okay.
as of the last sort of 15 years. I started out in accountancy
Yeah.
for quite a number of years, 8 or 9 years, and then it's not the most creative or dynamic or interesting career. No offence to those that are in accountancy. I found it quite repetitive. You work towards the month end, you submit it, and then you're back to base one. So you never actually delivered a project. So the business I worked for at the time was a light fitting wholesaler. So I'd been there for a number of years, spoke with them, they moved me into kind of operations to see if that might kind of satisfy my thirst for something a bit different. It was interesting enough, but about 18 months after that, the company had been bought out and decided to relocate to another part of the country,
Okay.
very far south from where I was. I wasn't really up for that move at that time
Yeah.
in my life,
Yeah.
so I decided to take the redundancy, which was fairly substantial. And
Okay.
at that point, back in my university days, I'd studied creative writing,
Right.
and I wondered if there might be a route into doing that as a career. So I spoke with a few people that I knew, and they suggested going back into university and retraining, which I did. So I went and did a master's in writing, professional writing, and at the same time I launched my career as a freelance content writer,
Okay.
with some support from aforementioned friends who happily enough owned a digital marketing agency, also my sister-in-law, who was director at an agency, so kind of got a lot of work
Fantastic.
thrown
Yeah,
my
you had the
way.
connections. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I was able to build up my portfolio. I did a lot of work for free initially,
Nice.
and I was just copywriting really, and I was able to build up my portfolio like that enough to have a few clients, I guess,
Yeah.
for a few years. I'm not going to lie, I missed annual leave.
Yeah.
I struggled with budgeting. When the work's good, it's good. When summertime, when everyone went on holidays, there was nothing coming in, so I struggled
Yeah.
to understand that I needed to apportion that money over 12 months. So that was a steep learning curve, but I enjoyed it, and I started doing some temp work to get back into offices and work with other people in marketing departments, and eventually was offered a job in one of those places, which
Cool.
is how I sort of segued into marketing as a
Yeah.
copywriter, basically.
Okay, cool. I feel like that's quite a common place for people to start. And we often talk about marketing being, or people who are successful in marketing, having that real split between having that creative side of the brain, but also having that real analytical side of the brain. You've almost got the perfect kind of starting of that in that you work totally for numbers in your accountancy role, and then you flipped all the way to the other side and went back to creative writing. So it's kind of interesting, the foundation there. But I guess you come back to that foundation of creative writing and the love for that very often in your work because that's applicable no matter where you're working in marketing. It's that ability to convey a message or convey emotion or persuade or whatever else it is. So that must still be quite very like fundamental to your work, I imagine.
Yeah, it's the absolute the essence of everything we do is understanding what our customers want. And
Mm-hmm.
if we understand that need, we understand how to communicate it to them.
Mm,
And that can be so often lost within marketing. Indeed, in many campaigns that I've run, you tend to get caught up in what you sell and the USPs
mm,
and the features and benefits of the product and how fantastic it is, but how does it solve the need of the
yeah.
customer? How are you
Mm,
going to cut through to them? So what myself and my team constantly do is we flip it, and we just before we, when we're planning a campaign, before we sign off on anything, we flip it and we say, actually, what do we want the customer to do? Well, we want them to buy the product. Why do we want them to buy the product? Well, because they're suffering from these particular challenges. Okay, I'm the
yeah.
customer. What messaging is going to cut through to me? So everything that we do is about the language that we're using, really,
Mm,
and
mm,
everything else comes secondary to that.
yeah.
For
Mm-hmm.
us, for me, the way that we sort of plan it out.
Mm.
So that's our particular way of going at it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, and I think you're so right there that it can often be a very self-centered is the wrong word, but a bit too much of like an introspective approach, and we can really struggle to divide like what we think is best for the customer with our own bias and our own like expertise on our product because we sit within the four walls where everyone's talking about our product, our service all the time. So it's impossible. I think we were talking on another podcast about that being really careful that that internal language doesn't seep into what we're trying to write for our customers because that doesn't connect at all. So yeah, it can be really difficult, but it's important to hit the pause button, I think, and just say, hang on a second, let's just flip this. Let's just make sure we're actually speaking to the customer. If I like that approach. Yeah. And so I guess you now, in terms of copywriting, content writing, things like that, you obviously have done that for many, many years. Do you have a view on kind of what makes a great copywriter or great content writer? Because some people, different people have different views. Like, do you think it is about that? It's about just always remaining customer centric, or do you believe that it's kind of a thing that some people have and some people have not? Or do you think it's a formula? Like, what do you think is the recipe?
I think there is a formula. I think some people are naturally more
Mm,
inclined towards it.
mm-hmm.
I've had people on my team that have been absolutely fantastic writers, beautiful almost, very prosaic with what they
Yes.
create. Unfortunately, you just kind of have to raise all of that to the ground and build up, and you have to, you kind of have to retrain yourself and effectively what you, the way that I always disseminate it out to my team is like shorter sentences, shorter, smarter sentences. Anything that you want to construct, just forget it. Get your key points in there. Look at what the customer's needs are,
Mm,
um, and then just literally build your content out around that. 5 bullet points. That's what you're trying to solve their problems, and you want to do that clearly and concisely.
mm,
And then the other thing is just top load your content. So if you've got that key bullet point, so for us, it might be, without boring you too much, it might be you have a particular saw blade that can cut
yeah.
a notoriously hard, tricky material to cut. Get that up there. Get it up there
Yeah.
that it cuts it at this speed at the top of the article, because chances are you're going to have lost people by the third paragraph.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you've kind of got to. I've had a lot of people write for me that have done a fantastic blog article or a bit of web content or something like that. that's very much like a 3-act play, and you're leading up towards the finale at the end. Unfortunately, you have to kind of put that aside. And then again, there's the adaptability to write different content for different channels as well. And social content is a dramatically different beast again. And once more, kind of get your key points out in your first line, because the preview mode on all of the social channels is working against you. So if you want to get the link up there, then get it up there. Don't bury it at the bottom of 4 paragraphs and 20 hashtags, sort of thing. So it's I don't know if there's no set formula to it, but it's probably going away and working and working at it. And one thing that I'd always recommend is look at your analytics and kind of listen to your audience on what's working and what isn't working, and go back and change that when it's not working, and repeat what you're doing when it is working. It's just a constant evolution, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and I think you touched on some really interesting points there, and just the concision. I mean, people's attention span and kind of dwell time on things is just always reducing, and that's such a battle for us because this age of overconsumption, as everybody always talks about, we are literally. I think the last time I read about it was 0.6 seconds we've got to capture somebody's attention. It's probably less now, and so our content, like you say, it's not about the third paragraph, it's literally about the first sentence or half sentence that we're playing with to capture the attention. So really important to think about that. And I like the idea of kind of really niching it down. I almost think of that copywriting or content writing or any creative process, really. You start with a sort of block of marble and then you sort of like chiseling it away to the final product. Sometimes that's how I find it easier to write. Start with something quite lengthy, and then it's a skill then to narrow it down and to pull out what really is the key thread. I think that's important. I agree with you. I think there's a framework you can follow, but I think the point of adaptability is key as well. I think anybody who isn't adapting across platforms, that then I mean, if we're speaking to completely different groups of people with completely different intents in completely different times, that needs a completely different approach. So if we're not succeeding in that, then we're definitely going to be losing people. It sounds like you've got quite a team there, and obviously quite a few different kind of people working on the marketing. I wonder, like, amongst your team, what you have been focusing on kind of recently that's maybe won for you, and when I ask this question, I guess I'm wondering if there's maybe any platforms of tech or even just like mindset approaches that you've been trying to adopt in your team recently that you feel like have really spurred you on or made an impact. Is there anything that comes to mind for that?
So, platforms and tech, well, the industry that we're in is more traditional than most. Therefore we're not reaching, we're not going to reach our audience through TikTok or any other channels that I might not be aware of yet because I'm so behind the times. We are really traditional. We still do a lot of kind of printed leaflets and catalogues, and we're trying to move away from it, for sustainability reasons and things like that. But we genuinely have a demand for them, so we try and manage that. One thing that we are trying to do, I had a new starter join the team in January who's very young, straight from school basically. So what we're trying to do is keep building our archive of video content. Now, for as long as I've been working in marketing, all I've heard is, video content. That's what you've got to produce. And that was always the dream, the vision. The problem was it was so difficult to find the time to be able to do it and to be able to do it effectively, so you had a quality end product that was actually going to reach a customer, that can be done with an image or some social content or something like that. And it's only recently that at the level of resource and equipment that we have that we're able to do that, and that is nothing to do with us buying expensive camera equipment or anything like that. It's just literally the software and mobile phones and things like that, and people's knowledge of how to use them has caught up. So we're able to quickly. That's another key thing, is that it used to take a day to edit sort of a social media video that would get minimal engagement.
So much hard work. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you looked at the effort versus reward, there was just no point doing it.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're able to, the guys on the team can churn something out in literally like an hour, which we're not only able to use for social media, embed it in the website and the relevant product page, but our sales reps actually send it out to their customers to say, hey, look, this is what this product can do, which has been massive. In part of the wider context, the other reason why we're able to do that is, as a business, we moved into a new premises. So this isn't a solely marketing aspect, but so we sell tooling to stone fabricators. They create kitchen worktops, and they do so using huge bridge saw machines where they put the slabs of stone on, cut it into shape, finish it and polish it off, and maybe put a sink cutout in it, and then install it into a kitchen, which is fabulous. And when you watch them do it, it's incredible craftsmanship and really expensive machines, £250,000 machines that they're using to do it. And we sell the tooling for this. So previously, if we wanted to record this or take pictures, we would have to go to a customer. So spent a lot of time going out on the road. In May last year, we moved to our new premises. And what we've actually done is install our own workshop here.
Nice.
Not to fabricate worktops, but for a number of reasons. One, to train up the team. We are absolutely certain we know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Two, for testing of the tooling. So we're working directly with the manufacturers, so we're able to absolutely test the tooling to within an inch of its life, recommend maximum parameters, things like that. And we have those parameters on site. We're not relying on anyone else to give them to us. And thirdly, as a marketing team, it's a dream, because if we want to video anything happening, or take photos or anything like that, it's just literally at the other end of our premises. Wow. And we go down, we book in one of the technicians, and they're able to do it. And we've got all this brilliant video content now, which we're just building and building and building. And finally, in my entire career, I'm able to actually do what I want where video is concerned.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And I think, wow, I think so many people who are listening to this will probably think, I wish I had that, because I think that, I mean, if we rank the top 10 frustrations that someone in marketing might have, it's that it's just impossible to get video content. So I relate to that so much. But what a dream to be able to have that and almost kind of build out the content that you want, go and get that. And it's, I completely, I mean, I'm envisioning it as well. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because yes, okay, the theory is we've all got a smartphone, we can all go and film something, but you end up with inconsistency, you end up with content that you can't repurpose anywhere. So to be able to have that, that's amazing. So do you do that quite frequently then, sort of like once a month or more often than that?
Actually, the team member that I mentioned has a KPI of one product video a week.
Nice.
She is keeping up with, which is
nice.
Including the editing and sign-off and approval, everything. That's, she's getting really good and resourceful with it, and she's quite quickly and skillfully understanding what the key points of the product are and how to show them on video. So I always go by either the rule of 3 or the rule of 5. I don't know what's an odd number, but if you're getting your USPs out, 3's best. If you've got a bit more to talk about, 5's, stick with 5, but no more than that, and then just really concisely get those points out. So we're doing a bunch of like 40-second videos. She's editing them either, depending on the complexity, on Premiere Pro or Canva. Neither of which are taking that much time for her to do. And so when it's coming to sign off, there's very little for me to comment on. It's just making sure the technical details are right. So we're loving it. we're like pigs in muck at the minute. So
Yeah, that's so good. And it kind of links into another topic, which I know we were just briefly chatting about before, which is kind of the adoption of the skills that come through from new talent joining our teams and like how well we implement that. Because I mean, in every industry, skills and evolution of skills and new technology and everything moves at such a pace, but I think nowhere faster than in marketing. And so we're really missing out in our marketing teams if we're not putting or we're not resource allocating, we're not allocating skills and tasks appropriately. And it sounds like you've got a fantastic new starter there who comes with the skills that might not exist elsewhere in the team. So I think it's really interesting to consider that. And I know you were kind of mentioning that it can feel like it's hard to keep up because actually new talent, new opportunities, options are entering the market all the time. And how do we pick and how do we make the most of them, stay ahead of the curve? I wonder if you want to just share your thoughts a little bit on that and that challenge and how that's been for you as an organization as well.
yeah, I mean it's tricky. You'll be the same. You're constantly looking at
Yeah.
LinkedIn or other channels and looking on with interest as you're kind of witnessing these marketing campaigns. And one thing that I've noticed is that in as a B2B, SME in B2B,
Yeah.
and in very niche industries. So we're not a huge company at all. We have 30 employees, but we are the market leader. We, traditionally, if I took the same company maybe 10, 15 years ago or in a different sector comparative, the the standard of marketing output wouldn't be, what you'd expect if you looked at, obviously it wouldn't be a million miles away from Apple or something like that, but even if you looked at kind of Nationwide Bank or bigger national companies or Greggs or Co-op or something like that, it would be so far removed from that. Whereas now I think that gap from the bottom, the SMEs, upwards, it is moving up because of this technology and because of this influx of talent that are kind of, it's more organic for them. It's naturally ingrained in them from the moment that,
Yes.
I guess that they whatever age people get phones nowadays, and and that technology that's sort of pushing them along behind. So therefore, as much as we try and push forward and raise the standard and be the market leader, everyone else is up there. So how do you cut through? How do you stand apart? And especially if what your offering is supposedly the premium offering in the market, the marketing should reflect that, but effectively anyone can. So someone who is selling products that aren't of the standard as yours, they can quite easily and relatively cheaply be able to kind of market a product that looks better maybe. So it's a challenge. I'd say it's a good challenge because it's driving marketing at our level forward and forcing us to be better or to be innovative, which is one thing that we're starting to look at, is coming in from different angles with our marketing. So not necessarily increasing the quality of what we're doing, but maybe injecting elements of humour or a slightly subversive streak to it, to try and be a different voice, to try and kind of tweak people's ears a little bit and get them looking at what we're doing, and then after that we can extol the merits of what it is that we're doing. So you're always looking for the audience's ear, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, we're all just trying to steal the microphone back and, steal the spotlight back. And it does feel very competitive and also, yeah, very, very copycat sometimes, like you say, and that can be really frustrating, but it's almost like I like the sentiment there that it almost drives us to do better. And instead of just settling and being frustrated that there are more challenges cropping up now, it's like, right, well, what's that going to spur us on to do? You know, if we're no longer going to win over here, let's try and win over here. And does turn it into quite a competitive thing, which is quite exciting, quite thrilling, but fast paced for sure, because it's a constant keeping up with what's going on around us. So yeah, I can really appreciate that, and certainly as a market leader as well, just to kind of sustain that position, and also with the idea that what you do is quite traditional, and the marketing methods that you use and that still there's demand for, you know, are traditional. So it's a difficult split potentially to think about, well, we have to keep doing all of those things, even though they feel a little bit like they're dragging us back, because that's how our world and how our industry works. But we also want to capture new audiences and make sure that we're future proofing ourselves by taking a more modern approach as well. So I can imagine it's kind of one foot in each side, which is quite interesting. But then I guess that's where you have people who have worked in marketing for quite a long time and can kind of bridge the gap. And then you have the new talent that's saying, hey, what about this thing nobody has ever heard of? And that's cool. I love it when it's a mix of that and when you get somebody in. And I think that's great in marketing as well, that it's not really about, oh, well, you know, you haven't done your 15 years in the industry, so you can't contribute yet. It's actually the opposite. So if you're new and if you're, like you said, if you're digitally native and you've seen this new app or this new approach that people are taking, please speak up. You know, we need that injection. And I think if people are too scared to be silent, their organizations are missing out there. So yeah, it sounds like that's something you encourage in your team, kind of that open forum and everyone okay to share ideas.
Definitely, and it's while I say it's traditional industry, I'm not naive enough to think that the world doesn't turn and days don't pass. So
Mm,
it is, but you know, some of these older business owners that are long-term customers of ours, they'll be looking towards retirement, and their sons have been working with them, or their daughters. Things, it
okay.
is quite a male-led industry. That's
Hmm.
why the sons there. But their sons or daughters will be moving into their positions. So they are people that are, as you say, like more digitally native. So we need to be kind of abreast of that sea change and be aware of how the channels are changing, because I'm saying that they're not at the minute, but they will be incrementally in ways that
Yeah.
we're not probably quite noticing yet. So a key thing for us here, which we try and do as much as we can, is go out and visit the customers. It's easy because we know our audience base and we have a sales team who are going out and visiting them on a regular basis. So we're
Mm,
not dropping in cold as a marketing team and banging on doors when they're busy working away. We go with the reps who are booked in to visit them. And then we'll just go and touch base with them and ask as many pertinent questions as we can to try and get some of this insight from them
yes.
as to, you know, one, their perception of us, what we do well, what we don't do well, but two, their kind of their buying channels, but also,
Mm,
you know, where, you know, where are they listening to kind of the noise within the industry? What is it? Is
yeah.
it LinkedIn or is it Instagram? Or, you know, I picked those two because strangely enough, those are the two primary channels for
Okay.
us in our industry.
Mm,
But are there any that we're not aware of, or
yeah.
are there any particular streams of content on those platforms that we need to kind of leverage and push a bit more in terms of our resource and get that understanding? And the guys in the team going out and doing that is going to be a lot more effective than me doing
Yeah.
it, because they're going to understand it a bit quicker and be able to feed that back. So
Mm.
yeah, everything we do is an open forum, and I'm always looking for input from them.
Yeah, yeah. Again, a really, really huge benefit for anybody in your team to be able to go and meet customers face to face. That's not a privilege that many individuals working in marketing, I imagine, get to experience. Either because maybe it's vast numbers and everybody's, um, just in a mass and as a number, and we're trying to build a picture of who these people are, and it's actually really difficult. So I can imagine that's hugely beneficial, just to listen to them speak and see how they are, and put a face to that idea of an ideal customer profile. These people have literally bought from us again before, so that we've got to think about them as our profile, and the similar sorts of people we'd like to get to buy from us. How are we going to do that? And I guess it's understanding where they spend their time. It's because I guess the question of where would you like to see us more, they may not be able to answer. So it's almost just ourselves kind of taking away, okay, without generalizing, what type of person do we think they are? Where do we think they spend their time? Where do we think they pick up information? And then proactively showing up there for them, which is, yeah, really interesting, because you're just trying to get ahead of the curve and show up where perhaps they don't even anticipate that they'd like you to show up, but actually it's going to be really useful. Yeah, great. I mean, that and the workshop, it sounds like it's really super like connected to the customer base, which is and the offering, obviously the tools and the process itself, which for marketing is hugely important. So yeah, wow, amazing. Lucky your team.
Yeah.
It's great. I think in terms of, so we've talked about quite a few challenges, and I don't think that's misplaced. I think there's a lot of challenges for marketing in any industry, and that's partly why we have the podcast. It can be a lot to face in a senior position in a company, because there's lots of things that are kind of pushing against us, and the one you mentioned there, and the gap closing, is one of them. I wonder what else you feel is a particular challenge facing marketers, either in your industry or just more generally, something that's kind of here already, or maybe approaching in the next couple of years, that you think is going to really change the way we work. What's kind of on your mind for that?
Um, what's difficult? I mean,
Yeah, it is tough. None of us are fortune tellers.
no, I'd say overall the biggest challenge, which I won't dwell on, is the economy and the pressures being
Yeah, sure.
placed on businesses of our size by the economy. As every penny is squeezed by stagnant sales, then budgets become cut to maintain profit margins.
Yes.
And as we'll all be aware, marketing is one of the first budgets that gets cut. So you're looking at kind of limiting your activities in areas that you might have previously not limited, and but delivering the same results with that limited budget. So I mean that's a very general term, because fortunately we've not had to do that here, but I can imagine that is a big pressure for other businesses. Other challenges coming in, I mean, I guess I've not been overly impressed with the use of AI in marketing as of yet.
Yeah.
I think it stands out like a sore thumb, whether it be images created or logos designed. We've tried to use it formatively, well, just experimentally, I'd say, to see if it could create content for us using a number of prompts. And, the authenticity is severely lacking there. So it's unbelievably complex and intelligent, the way that it can create something that sounds like it has been created by a human, but unfortunately, if you know the product, you know what you're talking about, you know the audience, you'll know that it doesn't really ring true straight away. So I think outside of that, a challenge is getting AI to work within marketing, actually using it as a tool rather than seeing it as something to be afraid of.
Yes.
I guess that's what a lot of marketers did, turned around and looked over their shoulders and thought, oh, is this going to put me out of a job? Well, no. As it stands at the minute, no, because it can't design like a graphic designer or an art worker, it can't write like a content writer, it can't plan strategy like a marketing manager or a head of marketing. So there's nothing for us to fear at the minute on that side. So the real challenge is actually this is an incredibly powerful tool. So can we get it working right to help us work more efficiently and deliver more? I don't know, someone a lot cleverer than me will be able to figure that out, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if it develops to this level where people where we're at in our kind of sector, in our industry, are able to use it to be able to deliver more.
Yes.
So it's something I'm interested to keep following and see whether it will deliver.
Yes, I think for me it kind of ties back to your points at the beginning where you were talking about this gap and how, high quality we are all forced to operate at because of the drive and the available technology and the new emerging talent and just this resurgence in kind of marketing creativity and the outputs that teams are able to come up with, because it then makes us think, well, hang on a second, you're supposed to be, this all-knowing supercomputer who's supposed to be able to do my job 10 times better and 10 times faster. And I actually don't think that's very good. And I think that's because we do push ourselves to such high standards to compete with others in our market. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think it's got a way to go, and I think there's still we're still sort of very um cautious with it, and really use it to maybe like 0.001% of its capability, because we're not really sure how to deploy it. Oh, can it write a LinkedIn post? Let me try that. I know that sounds rubbish. I'll just write it myself. And then we don't really have it in our day to day. It's not open in a tab. It's something that's very much like an afterthought, I think. So I think it will be slow, but I think it will be something that just gradually gets more embedded in the things that we buy, the things that we use anyway. It's kind of like this additional add-on at the moment, isn't it, where we have all our tabs that we have open for our normal day-to-day operations, and then sometimes AI. But I think the key will be when the organizations adopt it into the technology that we're already using, and that is starting to happen already. But yeah, I get the skepticism for sure. Difficult. And the authenticity, you just can't beat it. And I think customers and the people we know and the people you go and visit with your sales reps are also super discerning and pick up on it. So the last thing we want is to lose our credibility by feeling like we're taking a shortcut. And yeah, so it's a difficult one. But I think slowly people will probably navigate it. But it's nice that you tell everyone, don't worry, they're not gonna, they're not gonna, the robots aren't coming for us, not just yet. And I think I agree with you. A lot of marketing actually is it's just sitting down and using your brain and making a decision and looking at all the information laid out in front of you and understanding what picture that's building. And I feel like maybe AI is able to turn certain cogs within a machine, but it's not able to kind of step outside and assess the efficiency of the machine. Maybe it can. Maybe I just haven't found the right website.
I've no doubt
Who
that
knows?
there's, it will do eventually, or
It will do.
close to
Yeah,
that.
it will
But
do.
yeah, as it stands, what we come into contact with, it's not quite at that level, is it?
No, exactly. Luckily for us, long may it continue. But no, it's really interesting, isn't it, to think about what the future might hold, and in 10 years, what tools we're using, what tools we have access to, and that's exciting as well as a little bit concerning, because we will adopt them. And I was talking on another podcast about how everything initially seems like a challenge, and then we sort of learn to adopt it, and then it's a huge opportunity. And what would our marketing be without it? And social media, when that kicked off however long ago. I mean, that at the beginning was a frightening challenge because it was all the unknown, and then we've learned to adopt it, and now it's a tool. So I guess it's that as well. But yeah, lots to contend with, and certainly very busy for anyone who works in marketing to sort of be keeping all the plates spinning. But yeah, I mean, Dan, we have really chatted a lot and almost come to the end of the time. I do want to just ask you one more question before we come to the end of the episode, which is, if you hadn't been in marketing, if you hadn't followed this as a career path, I know you started in accounting, do you think you would have continued in accounting? Did you have a lifelong kind of childhood dream of something you wanted to go into when you were younger? What do you think it would have been if not marketing?
Uh, well, when I was younger, I always wanted to be a writer, and
Yeah.
it was something that came back periodically. I'll be clear, I wasn't particularly good at creative writing, sort of fiction writing.
Hmm.
So I think it's something that I always would have. It's always popped back throughout my life, and
Hmm.
fortunately, I'm able to do a job now where I have some element of that, and I'm able to kind of indulge a creative aspect of it. So it probably would have been something for that. I was never going to play up front for England. Football team was just wasn't good enough. I was never going to be the lead singer of a rock band either. So
X
those
Factor winner.
other yeah those other dreams, unfortunately, I wouldn't have been able to follow either. So I think writing I loved, and it was something that I was fairly
Mm.
competent at. So I think that in some way, shape or form
Mhm.
would have come back into my career.
Nice, nice. And nice that you can still, in a way, be continuing that thread on in the work that you do, even though, it's a lot more than writing. Nice that that's still there as a foundation, as something you love. So, yeah, and I think that's the thing about marketing, isn't it? Whatever particular aspect you love, whether that's, the words or the creative or the imagery or whatever else, there's kind of a place for lots of different things to be enjoyed and lots of people to specialize in different areas that they feel like particularly their thing. So yeah, really interesting, really interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for all your insights and talking to us about the organization, and really appreciate that, because it really shows us kind of behind the curtain, which I feel like we don't often get to see. We see the shiny finished product, but we don't necessarily see the workings behind. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you very much for sharing
Pleasure.
um, how everything's going. And we look forward to seeing the content, the videos, and everything that's going to be coming out across the next few months. So, yeah, thanks for
Yeah,
sharing,
absolutely.
Dan.
Thank
Have
you.
a great
Well,
rest of your day.
shout out to my team for creating them. They're the ones
Yes.
doing all the hard work. So
Yeah, sounds like a super team. We'll be watching on the social feeds and liking along.
brilliant. Thank you very much.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Dan. Have a great rest of your day.
You too. Cheers. Bye.
Bye. Bye bye.